Good morning. This is George Goodman coming to you live on the podcast for Southern Illinois residents. Welcome. Today is June 29th and it's hot outside. So, you have a great opportunity now, since it's hot outside, to listen to me for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then you can go and enjoy your movie. You can go to a movie and have a good time because I'm bringing you the facts and details for Illinois, Southern Illinois, and actually, if I can expand, for all of Illinois. So let's dive right in it. So, what are the politicians talking about running for office in the fall? Senate, House of Representatives, the Senate seat, governor, Secretary of State, and Attorney General. I always like talking about the Attorney General because I'm still convinced if you look at the policies on the Republican side, if we want to start fighting back a little bit, having lost challenge with respect, that's where we would start at. But I've done reels about that, so you know that that was my position. Okay, so if we dig into the details of what they'll be talking about this week, they're still talking about the state's new $56 billion budget, economic relief, and now they're talking about abortion access. Now, as you are aware of, on the Republican side for governor, last time around, the Republican nominee was hit pretty hard with abortion access. So you can go back and look, and I would tell you to go and look at the Republican nominee for governor's position now. And like I say, the U.S. Senate seat has been pretty quiet. No commercials still. And I wonder if they're just showing them in the Chicago area. And I'm going to talk about that at the end of the podcast because I want people to vote. All right, so state and budget economic relief. So here we go. So the state is spending 55.9 billion this fiscal year, and they have some new laws. So they're spending over 900 million more than they did last year. Now, what that really means is that the state is trying to cover in an election year some of the social programs that they got into it with the federal government about. So, Democrats are heavily defending the newly passed budget, pointing to over 300 million in fresh funding, public education, 100 million for grocery assistance, and an upcoming August sales tax holidays on school supplies. Now, the school supplies that was a new one. It is an election year, so you figure how you feel about that. Grocery assistance. Well, Illinois doesn't have a state grocery tax now, but as I keep telling you, the municipalities do. So instead of the state getting it, it's going to the local people. And instead of the government sending them some of it, they're not sending them anything. So did it really change? You decide. Republicans, spearheading by the Republican nominee, are countering by hammering the spending plan is fiscally irresponsible and the largest in state history, which it is. GOP candidates across the state are focusing their messaging on the high cost of living, arguing that the budget implements hidden burdens via new taxes on social media companies, sports betting, and tobacco. Okay. Well, first of all, I didn't know that they were taxing tobacco. Um, the Republican Party, if they really meant that and they want to get it out there, The candidates need ads. I mean, I'm telling you what they're talking about, but I'm the only one. And I'm not sure how people are going to take what I just said. Now, this has come up again, probably from the Democrats. Reproductive rights remain an explicit pillar of the state's political conversation. Now, why would that be? All right. So the governor, Pritzker, is heavily promoting his signature on a new law that shields the digital medical records on abortion patients from out of state investigation, reinforcing Illinois' position as a Midwest healthcare haven. Okay. On the Republican side, and we're talking about the governor's race, the Republican nominee is attempting to shift focus away from social issues to broaden its appeal. So Bailey's running mate, Aaron Delmar, publicly stated that abortion is not a priority for their campaign, acknowledging that the majority of Illinoisans support abortion access and is instead steering the conversation back to public safety and business growth. That was the smartest thing that they've done. That needs to be on a state ad. And so that's why Governor Pritzker, the Democrat, is bringing it up because they are promoting that Bailey is not for abortion rights, even though it clearly say that he doesn't have an opinion on it and it's not a priority. They need to get that message out. Okay, so here we go. Immigration enforcement and mass deportation responses. Progressive and Democratic candidates hate when they put labels on people, but that's how they describe the Democrats. Are heavily messaging the legislative victory, which bars federal immigration detention centers from being built near community spaces like schools and parks. Okay, so you can't build one near a school and a park. Okay, well, that makes sense. So, what's the discussion about with that one? Republican candidates are targeting states like the Safety Act and the Trust Act, arguing that the state's policy are overly lenient and compromise public safety. Good point. Again, no commercials. But and now, well, I want to say one more thing: the U.S. Senate race and special interest money. So, so for the U.S. Senate features Democrat facing off against the Republican nominee. Both sides are focusing their rhetoric on accountability, ethics, and campaign finance. Candidates are trading barbs over corporate PAC funding, corporate special interests, and previous campaign contribution tied to federal immigration enforcement contractors. Okay, so to put that in English for you guys, what's going on is that on the Democratic side for the Senate, there is a PAC that has a unofficial tie to the current Democratic governor, and they are spending money, which means that they can do commercials. On the Republican side, like I keep saying, is that for whatever reason, the Republican Party is not investing in the candidates in the state, meaning that they're not getting any airtime whatsoever. And as a result of that, they don't get played. Now, I've been telling you to go out to their website, which I think is a great idea because I came up with it, right? I don't understand the Republican Party. So they're focused in Texas, where it's more likely that the Republican will win just based off of the the fact of policies. And in Illinois, for some reason, they've just given up. And the Republican nominee, wow, I just don't see how currently they are going to be able to make a move. Now, what I want to talk to you about in the next minute is about voting again. I keep talking about it and I will continue. Sorry, this is important. When I talk to people, I sense, and I don't know if they're Democrats or Republicans in this part of the state, and most of them don't think that their vote is going to count. Of course, it counts. And the more people that vote, that means that that is the will of the people. And we have to be committed because in the national election for president last time, a lot of people voted who didn't normally vote. When President Barack Obama got elected, some people, and they told me this, had never voted in an election because they didn't think that their vote would count. So, in both of these examples, when people actually voted, it did change the outcome. And in this part of the state, Southern Illinois, we have the numbers. And forget all of the rhetoric and the emotion. Please go out to the websites of these candidates. And if the candidates are listening, put information out there on your policies. Even deal with the policies that before you had a different opinion and maybe apologize for those opinions and say, hey, that's not a priority to my campaign. Because if you cannot get on any commercials, then how do people know? And then people get frustrated. And then before you know it, they do not vote. And the rhetoric and the policies of the people in power stay the same. And you could apply that to any state, because I would tell you for New York City, one of the biggest issues is that people throw up their hands and they're not voting. We have to vote in these local elections. That's the bottom line. And in Illinois, we're only 400,000 votes from taking over the governor's office. So your opinion matters. Policy matters. And this podcast is about presenting facts. And some of the feedback is, yeah, you're telling us stuff and you're not taking sides. And I'm not going to. You have, well, with rare exception, occasionally. The policies matter. It has nothing to deal with social issues, affordability, gas prices, grocery prices, all of that stuff. And we need to vote our interests. So this is Just Listen, hosted by George Goodman. Thank you for tuning in. Pass it along. Give me feedback. And we'll talk to you again on Friday. Have a great day.